That's from Venezuela, Alejandra Lapera, with the World March of Women. They shared that the Venezuelan people, have the right to dream, to have government, to have a country that they want on their terms, and they know what's at stake. The United States is that not only coming after Venezuelan oil, but they're going after gold, diamonds, land, uranium, the water. You know, they're going after the self dignity and respect of the Venezuelan people itself, of being able to stand up against the empire. But the Venezuelans are strong. They haven't been able to make Venezuelans to stand down with the economic war. They haven't done it with the 1,000+ sanctions against them, and they haven't done it with the over the last 5 months and attacks in the Caribbean, killing hundreds of people, over 100 people at sea, and the extrajudicial killings of Venezuelans. Venezuelans aren't standing down. And so I know that I'm coming up on the end of my time, and I want to leave you all with two tools that I can drop in the comments that GGJ uses. The first is the Feminist Peace Playbook. As part of the Feminist Peace Initiative led by GGJ, Women Cross DMZ, and Madre, we created this playbook, which is a comprehensive guide designed to challenge and transform through 4 interconnected strategies. We outlay plays for movements, researchers, policymakers, philanthropy, media professionals to collaborate on, and to use the recommendations set forth with each of the sectors to try and shift away from a U.S. foreign policy that is built on violence and domination, and toward one that is safer, more secure, and brings an abundant future. We understand that the systems that seek to destroy us are international, and thus our solidarity must cross borders. Resistance must be organized on an international scale. And let me drop it for everybody in the chat. That's the Feminist Peace Playbook. And for a vision of a resilient and healthy future for all. Police, prisons, ICE, the National Guard, they don't make our communities safer. Expanding the protections for vulnerable communities, guaranteeing safety nets, investing in community and schools, healthcare, good union jobs, housing. All of these are fundamental elements to build a healthy and safe, vibrant communities. Our strategy is care. Care is power. We've seen a massive global movement of people from all walks of life organizing, strategizing, engaged in blockades and boycotts to halt the genocide in Palestine. Care is community. The networks of rapid response, mutual aid, legal support, mobilizing to support and protect immigrant communities from ICE raids. That's the way that we're going to win, by caring for one another. If we are to be in genuine solidarity with communities impacted by militarism, by imperialism, then it is in the interests of the poor and working people that we must take into account. Enough of the false promises, and it's time to guarantee solutions to solve the issues that we face.
Thank you so much, Roman. That was a really comprehensive breakdown of how imperialism operates and the history. Like, you touched on different countries that the U.S. has intervened in, and also our role that we have to play. And also thank you for talking about the economic tools of war. U.S. sanctions are a form of slow genocide, and it's just as violent as the bombs, is the economic strangulation. So and we know that part of the resistance is consciousness, right? Encountering the imperialist propaganda. And just want to share this flyer that you all can use. It talks about why it's important to boycott Chevron as the only U.S. oil company in Venezuela and the primary energy provider to Israel. So we'll drop the link in the chat. And just to say that what happened, what Gaza did over the past 2 years challenged not only Israel, but U.S. imperialism in its entirety, and also helped expose the nature, not the true nature, not only of Zionism, but also the true nature of U.S. imperialism. And so it's important for us to keep building on the gains of this moment where there's just been such a shift in public opinion and growth of consciousness. So with that, I want to introduce Ilanka from the Oil and Gas Action Network. Now that we've talked about this context, we'd love to hear from you about what can we do about it, and if you can share with us more details about the Boycott Chevron campaign.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everybody. And yeah, my name is Ilanka, and I'm the California organizer with the organization Oil and Gas Action Network. And coincidentally, I am from Chile. So personally, my life has been touched by US imperialism and overthrowing a democratically elected government there. So yeah, thank you, Ramon, for such a thorough overview of all the ways in which US imperialism shows up. And I want to tie this back into why we are targeting Chevron. So as we heard, Venezuela has some of the largest proven oil reserves in the world, and we can surmise that if it weren't for Venezuela's vast oil reserves, it's very unlikely that the Trump administration would have taken the steps that they took to kidnap the president of Venezuela and bomb and kill hundreds of Venezuelans. Like, the fact that they have these rich oil reserves is a key piece to the invasion that they've suffered. So what's, I think, different from the long history of US imperialism in the current moment is that Trump is kind of saying the quiet part out loud, right? Like, he straight up came out and said, we're going into Venezuela, we're taking their oil, that's what we're going to do there. So I think that is kind of a narrative shift, as we've been talking about, the things that have been more under wraps are coming to the surface, and the Trump administration is being pretty open about their intention to invade this country for their oil and for their natural resources specifically. Another fun fact about this current invasion is that, as was mentioned, the Trump administration did not seek congressional approval before they invaded Venezuela and perpetuated these acts of war. But he did actually talk to big oil companies before the bombs dropped. So these big oil CEOs knew before Congress was informed that this was going to happen. So as was mentioned, Chevron is the only US-based oil company that is extracting Venezuelan oil, and they stand to benefit the most from Trump's aggression there. They have been in Venezuela for about 100 years, and they benefit from an exemption in the sanctions that have been imposed on Venezuela. So whereas the Venezuelan National Oil Corporation is unable to sell most of their oil to other international entities, Chevron has an exemption from that. So they are still able to extract Venezuela's oil, bring it to the United States, refine it here, and that actually produces no monetary benefit for the Venezuelan people under the current sanction regime. So that's another piece that I thought y'all should know about. And speaking of the sanctions that Ramon was so eloquent in explaining, one interesting piece as it relates to the current situation is that U.S. sanctions on Venezuela were a major factor in pushing Venezuela to sell their oil to China, which was then used as an excuse by the United States for their attack, right? So we're also hearing the Trump administration say that, it's important for us to be invading Venezuela because we don't want them selling their oil to China. Well, they probably wouldn't have been doing that as much had it not been for the sanctions in the first place. Another thing that we've been hearing the Trump administration say is that, he's encouraging them to invest in Venezuela to extract those oil reserves. And we've seen some estimates of how much investment it would take in infrastructure in order to actually extract those oil reserves. her $35 billion in subsidies federally to big oil. So like, just imagine the scale of that. Like if we were to, like, we're currently subsidizing a highly internationally profitable industry and incentivizing them to continue to invest in other countries, and we're going to use taxpayer money to pay them back. Make it make sense. It doesn't really make sense to me. I'd like to change to the next slide, please. I see a question in the chat. How much? The current federal subsidies is somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 billion. And Trump was asking them to invest another 100 billion just in Venezuela. And what we didn't touch on is also, like, if we were to burn all of that oil, that of course perpetuates climate disaster and climate catastrophes that impact the world's most vulnerable first, right? Think of all of the billions of people across the world that live just above
Recording in progress.
Whoop, I guess we just started recording. So why should we boycott Chevron? Well, as you've heard, Chevron profits from and is complicit in Palestinian apartheid and genocide. Next slide. They are in deep complicity because they acquired an energy company called Noble Energy in 2020, and they own and partially own and operate the largest natural gas fields off the coast of Israel, Palestine, and the Eastern Mediterranean. So these oil fields are called Tamar and Leviathan. So this is a recent purchase for them. So they just entered the Israeli energy market in the last 5 years. And, in just 1 year, through those operations, they are providing almost $500 million in taxes, fees, and royalties to the Israeli government. So that's, direct monetary support for the Israeli regime. With this natural gas, they're also powering almost half of Israel's electric grid, which powers all of their operations, including Israeli military bases, prisons, Israeli settlements. And of course, the apartheid piece of this is that the Palestinian people don't have energy sovereignty. They are disallowed access to their own resources and to their own energy. So this obviously is why we are calling, from the Palestinian-led BDS movement to boycott Chevron. Next slide. But as my previous presenter mentioned, the U.S. meddling in other countries for corporate profit is not new. And Chevron, especially, along with being a target for their role in Palestine, has also just a long and rich history of being notoriously terrible around the whole world. They have actually been found liable for over $50 billion in damages across several countries, and have hardly paid any of that money to the communities that they have harmed. In the case of Ecuador, for example, Chevron purchased Texaco, which had left an environmental disaster in the Amazon rainforest region of Ecuador, where they pumped and just left open pits of wastewater and dumped oil and solvents and other wastewater directly into the streams that Amazonian people drank, bathed, and got their sustenance from, which has resulted in some towns and some communities in the Amazon today that have cancer rates as high as 50% in their communities. So in Ecuador, Chevron was found liable for almost $10 billion in damages. And instead of paying, they just took all their assets and left the country, ran away, and, have just refused to pay. So I want to turn it back to, this Chevron's model. Actually, can you go back one slide? Sorry. Yeah, so Chevron's model, their business model is basically profit at any cost. They don't mind violating human rights, toxifying the land, the water, the air, and the people. And they're producing a product that creates global climate chaos. Like, there's not really a great point of view for them. Next slide. So we have this common enemy, right? Chevron has harmed so many communities around the world. So our collective liberation struggles must join together in this too. So that is our call for all of you to join the Boycott Chevron campaign. Next slide, please. There's actually, before we go to this point, I wanted to just mention that I was talking to an organizer in Mississippi just yesterday. She has a Chevron refinery in her community, and she was telling me that Chevron just applied for an expansion permit. So the oil that comes out of Venezuela is a heavy and sour crude that is not easily processed in any refinery. So they are most likely and most directly going to the Gulf South. So when they, the communities in the stretch of the Gulf South are referred to as Cancer Alley because they have such high cancer rates in those communities. This organizer I was talking to yesterday was telling me that in her close-knit neighborhood, they have several people with the same rare leukemia living across the street from one another. So, we're seeing the impacts of this invasion of Venezuela brought back home to our soils, to the United States, with people in the Gulf South bearing the brunt of the processing chemical waste coming from Venezuelan oil. So we're inviting you all to boycott Chevron because this target, Chevron, is actually much more available to us as consumers than many other targets of boycott. So we know that boycotts are effective. We have seen effective boycotts of gas companies like Shell in South Africa, for example, be very successful in ending apartheid regimes in the past. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to, they're an effective direct action that any of you can take and participate in to fight fascism and imperialism. And with that, I'll pass it over to my other friends.
Thank you so much, Ilanka. That was incredible breakdown of why Chevron is an important target and just like a better, deeper understanding of the role of big oil, and their role in these global systems of domination and also in poisoning our people and affecting people's everyday lives on the day-to-day. And I wanted to pass it next to Danny, who's going to talk to us about taking ways you can take action together. And we'll also hear from a case study from this campaign.
Thanks, Celine. Hey, everyone. I'm Danny. I am USCPR and USCPR Action's Digital Organizing Manager. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about our focus tactic for the moment, which is to isolate Chevron's corporate business as usual. So how do we know that this is an effective tactic? Chevron has effectively let us know. After 2 years of this campaign, Chevron only acknowledged the boycott when the United Methodist Church endorsed the campaign in July 2024. So we know that their business relies on positive brand associations and manufacturing consent for their current business practices, to the end that Chevron actually hired a California-based PR firm to establish and run a faux news site in New Mexico. So it's we've seen it everywhere. The narrative is important in order for these corporate oligarchs to continue, getting money from harming people and planet. And in the way that Chevron's corporate business works is they don't necessarily have a national corporate partner that we're aware of. They work through the hard labor of community organizers on a local level. So they're basically throwing money at local events, institutions, people with big hearts organizing to give something to their community, and are able to launder their crimes through the hard labor and love of local community event organizers. In the last year, Boycott Chevron grassroots organizers and environmental justice organizers from Denver to Seattle and beyond have actually successfully pressured city councils and local community institutions and events to drop Chevron as a sponsor, including Denver's LGBT Center on Colfax. Big shout out to them. The Denver Colfax Marathon, California State Fair, City Club Portland, and the MLK Labor Council also endorsed the Chevron campaign. There's so many more wins as well. There's actually huge momentum. So to that end, I'm very excited to introduce you to our upcoming Drop Chevron win organizer, Matt, who is a representative from Chevron Out of French Quarter Fest. Upcoming big win for the Boycott Chevron campaign. So I'll pass it over to you, Matt. Matt, you're muted.
My worst nightmare. Okay, am I unmuted now? Okay, perfect. So my name is Matt. I'm an organizer with No Ship. That's New Orleans Stop Helping Israel's Ports and the New Orleans DSA. But really, I'm here as a representative of the coalition effort, which is the Chevron Out of French Quarter Fest campaign. We believe really strongly, when I say we, I hopefully include everybody on this call as well, that this is a campaign that is going to win. Chevron's exploitation is extremely visible and apparent to working people in the Gulf Coast, New Orleans especially. I would expand that even to the Caribbean generally. And one of the things that I've learned from talking to people in the city, canvassing about this campaign, is that it takes almost no convincing for everyday people to arrive at Chevron as a villain or some exploitative weapon of imperialism. Oftentimes in our discussions with people, we simply end up expanding on their sort of core understanding or gut instinct that they have with these new components or perspectives on Chevron's evils, be this making people more aware of their participation powering the genocide of Palestinians, making it clear their role, this being Chevron's role in bringing about the illegal invasion and theft from Venezuela, or Chevron's violation of regulation, which led to the reduction of a nearby parish called Plaquemines Parish landmass by over 50%. People kind of already understand Chevron to be this villain, but highlighting all of these intersections really allows us to build motivation, action, and engagement. And this sort of culminates in outlining the secondary target of our campaign that we focus on, which is French Quarter Fest. French Quarter Fest is an unticketed city-first festival that happens every year in New Orleans during our festival season. It is hosted across 14 or 15 stages in the city, and it hires musicians from the city, but also transplant musicians to perform. Usually these are small acts who perform for, we've learned, relatively little pay, primarily exposure. And their stated ethos is to represent the values and culture of the city of New Orleans. Well, Chevron uses its sponsorship funding to co-opt that goodwill and cultural cachet that French Quarter Fest has established within the city. I should mention as well, French Quarter Fest has existed since the 80s in New Orleans, and Chevron has only been the title sponsor since 2013. So they sort of somewhat recently in the history of the event have taken the reins as using this as their primary vehicle for greenwashing in the city of New Orleans. Chevron, I mentioned previously, has been found guilty by a court of Louisiana for reducing the landmass of Plaquemines Parish by over 50%. They violated regulations at their refineries in the early aughts as Texaco, and the finding was to the number of something like 750 or $800 million. Based on our research and publicly available information about French Quarter Fest, Chevron could afford to put on a French Quarter Fest every day for about 14 years before it proved more expensive than the finding that they're inevitably going to attempt to avoid paying. Now, what does that say? It means that they're comparatively spending a very low amount of money in an attempt to greenwash their image. What do we do against that? Well, we actually have a huge advantage because in arenas where Chevron seeks to exploit the public eye, they are then inevitably subject to the weight of public pressure. So we've sort of launched this public campaign in November of 2025, all the way through April when the actual French Quarter Fest proper occurs, to drive engagement with French Quarter Fest in coalition with musicians that are performing, for example, as well as other various Palestinian advocacy groups in the city, and environmental activist groups within the city as well, to create this friction between the existence of Chevron and the ethos and values of French Quarter Fest, essentially turning on its head the structure which Chevron seeks to exploit, that they sort of wish to exist in this space. And hopefully we will make it very clear that the city of New Orleans does not stand with the values that Chevron represents. I think this intersectionality is really the key of our campaign. We are able to discuss all of these various components of Chevron's evils and crimes and sort of collate them in a way that makes it difficult for people, everyday people, to ignore. Even if they already knew one or two things and they had compartmentalized those, we're able to draw out more interest and engagement because we do exist at this intersection of Chevron's complicity in the region and the world generally. I know that right now being shared is actually our website, chevronout.org. We have a petition on the website that I would encourage anybody to sign. We are accepting signatures from people that aren't even from New Orleans, because this is a city-sponsored festival. It is also funded by the New Orleans Tourism Board. So this is technically applicable to anybody who could conceivably travel to New Orleans. Obviously, everybody in the country or abroad even is targeted by New Orleans tourism. And I believe that we also have this sort of more immediate even action that we're looking to do today. Yes, exactly. There's this link here to the Drop Chevron comment campaign. I don't know, Danny, if you want to jump in and discuss that a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt, and really excited to see y'all announce your pending victory. And thank you to everyone here who's going to help be a part of that. So first, I want to draw your attention to the link in the chat that Leah shared, uscpr.org/drop Chevron. So this is a brand new action tool that targets, right as of today, 30 different emails that go to different events and institutions that have received money from Chevron as a sponsor, including French Quarter Fest. So we thought it would, there are so many amazing people like Matt who are organizing campaigns locally and wanting to, and setting up these petitions and these tools. If we nationally are able to consolidate our power and with one click send an email to 30 people and support these activists on the ground, and letting them know that you need to drop Chevron, like the brand association is just, it's bad, it's not worth it, then we can lend more power to their campaign. So could we get like a, I don't know, comment in the chat, maybe like your favorite emoji or something once you have you have signed the tool. And if you already have filled out this action tool, then I encourage you to share it with a friend. Yay, heart eyes, watermelon emoji. Thank you, Lauren and Johanna. Yes, my digital nerd hat is on because it can be really easy to support people who are putting in so much labor into making sure that Chevron cannot get away with war crimes from Palestine to Venezuela, so to Ecuador and beyond. So we're gonna take like a few more seconds basically to together feel the collective energy of us just flooding inboxes right now, and then sending a friendly text to a friend who does not want to endorse or participate or wants to end Chevron's war crimes. Okay, love to see it. Okay, moving right along. So next up, I think we're gonna get a screen share soon of a social media flood option that we're gonna all together take right now against French Quarter Fest. So I don't know where that is, but I'm gonna go ahead and share a link in the chat. You can click this and you will arrive to our collective flood of French Quarter Fest. So you're just going to go to their Instagram page, and their most recent post is announcing a coming soon for their official poster and merch. And we have a list of potential comments that you can choose from to share on this post specifically. But we also encourage you to get creative and write from your own voice and your own perspective. You can just copy and paste as well. That is very, very welcomed. And there is also a very special section for people who are local to New Orleans. And let's see what the comment section is saying. We're doing it. We have snails, we have roses. We're all feeling very excited about flooding French Quarter Fest. And also, I just want to point out, like, part of this tactic too is knowing who we're speaking to. We're speaking to French Quarter Fest marketing team, basically. And so, we want them to think that this is doable and winnable, and that they have community support to drop Chevron and put on a successful community event and be celebrated for it. So I think we all feel in our bones that we are entering a new era. We are in a transition era where we are not ruled by corporate oligarchy, and the power is with the people. And I hope you all feel that in this moment as we are in real time supporting Matt and the Chevron Out of French Quarter Fest campaign. So here is another bonus. Once you've done this, you could also do the same with the DC Cherry Blossom Festival, which we only just learned about thanks to folks in this chat. I think it was Hussein in this chat who let us know. So I will go ahead and share that link. And please do also follow Chevron Out so you can stay close with their campaign and support them. And hopefully with our national efforts, we're able to usher in more power to this local impending victory, y'all. I think we're gonna wrap here and I'll pass it back to you, Celine. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you to our speakers. This was an amazing webinar, and thanks, Danny, for walking us through the actions and Matt for the case study. So we're going to send out a follow-up email with the links that we shared in the chat today with additional ways you can take action. Feel free to share them with your organizations, your friends, your families, your networks. Thank you all so much for joining, and we'll see you all at our next mass movement call. Take care, everyone, and have a good night.